Dear friends, so where are we at? Is there really total chaos and confusion? Not really. There are three things we know. Point number one, we cannot trust our politicians. We cannot trust the mainstream media, nor can we trust the puppets who appear on and in the mainstream media. Sure, we cannot know the full extent of their lies, but the one thing that I, for my part, know as an absolute certainty is that they lied about every single aspect of their plandemic, starting with the PCR test and ending with the safe and effective, which immediately turned into a suddenly and unexpectedly. And I also know, and I know that you know that too, that those who pulled the strings from behind the scenes are absolute monsters. The same is true for many, but not all of the puppets. When I look at the judges and prosecutors, I find it very hard to believe that they made mistakes when they refused to listen to the other side, which is not just an age-old legal rule, but represents common sense, as any legal rule should. And if they really did make mistakes because they actually thought that the CDC or its German equivalent, the RKI, was Mr. Know-it-all whose sentences must not be questioned, then such mistakes are unforgivable, 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 as a good friend of mine says. The quality of such mistakes is that which Dietrich Bonhoeffer, shortly before he was murdered in a concentration camp at the end of World War II, describes as stupidity, and which almost 200 years earlier, philosopher Immanuel Kant said was born out of cowardice, stupidity born out of cowardice, that is, the cowardly refusal to use one's own reasoning and rather follow orders. Point number two I want to make is that what some of us perceive as chaos is in reality the loss of control before the collapse of the monster's system. It is this. To my own surprise, we, the real humans on this side of the fence, were able to see through their lies and deceptions and their panic and warmongering. Why? Because I, as a very well-trained lawyer with lots of courtroom experience, and I'm not saying this to brag, but only to emphasize that when it comes to the law, I really do know what I'm talking about. So that I realized already in March of 2020 that there were other voices out there, voices that the mainstream media and their politicians tried to drown out or ignore or to simply call conspiracy theorists and far-right anti-Semites. And of course, when so much effort is put into silencing others, into the abolition of free speech, and to once again use that central legal theme to the burial of audiatur et altera pars, which is Latin, it means listen also to the other side. When so much effort is put into this kind of destruction of free speech, then you know for a fact that there's something very, very wrong, and that the monsters have something very, very important to hide, namely that they're lying. And so I decided to do what anyone does, especially lawyers do before they draw any conclusions, find out what is really going on, find out the truth. And when I thought that we knew enough about the PCR test being deliberately misused in order to create cases that didn't exist, about the mask mandates making no sense whatsoever, the lockdowns destroying the economies, and the experimental shots destroying our friends' and families' health, when I knew enough about this, I decided to go ahead and show how there can be a legal reckoning. My very good friend, Anna Garner, had the brilliant idea, really brilliant idea, of doing this by conducting a model grand jury investigation with a real judge, real lawyers, real experts, and real witnesses. And with our viewers, the real people, the jury. The only thing that was ultimately missing is a verdict by you, the people, who had been watching this grand jury, this model grand jury proceeding. But that was, as we now know, because my former co-host and her co-conspirators, who later filed that now infamous criminal complaint against me, were being used by the panicking monsters. The panicking monsters were afraid that the people's verdict would be, like millions of people voting that this evidence is enough for an indictment. That would have been extremely embarrassing on an international stage. So the three Berlin lawyers, her co-conspirators turned agents for the German Domestic Intelligence Service, they did this knowingly. My former co-host was probably not aware that she, who had been trained to work for the dark side since early childhood, as many of you know, was just a pawn in this evil game. Be it as it may, it doesn't really matter at this point. What I learned from this investigation and from the model grand jury proceeding is that we do have the ability, in fact, the power, to withstand their insane assaults on humanity, expose them, and thereby stop them. If we put our mind to it, we can actually do anything. But what this experience also made very clear is that it is not enough to see through and not believe the lies. But in addition, I will not believe the liars either. The lies they had been telling us was not just a harmless white lie, but they were deadly lies. These liars can never, ever be believed again. That is the conclusion I also drew from this experience. But here's yet another thing. Some of the friends who write me start by saying, "You don't know me." But that is not correct. I do know you because I can see in your letters and postcards who you are, that you are real and authentic, and that you not only mean what you say, but that you have real human qualities, like empathy, for example. Unlike the monsters and most of their puppets, you do not pretend to be someone you're not. And in that sense, we all of us know each other. We recognize each other. And that is what connects us. This certainty that we know that we can trust each other is what connects us in a way that I do not fully understand yet, but that I know that it works. This is something that the monsters on the other side of the fence do not have. They're not real. They're only meaningless pieces of a puzzle designed to confuse us, designed to deceive and manipulate us so that we will not find out that behind that veil of smoke and mirrors sits a totally irrelevant Wizard of Oz type little meaningless monster with no friends, no one they can trust, and nothing to live for. They're all alone, and unlike Major Tom, there's no one who hopes that they will make it back down to earth. They're only part of an illusion, but a monstrous illusion, a deadly one. And that leads me straight to point number 3. I once believed that a human being is defined by his or her brain, and that brain death, that is, when no brain waves can be measured anymore, defines death. Well, I don't believe that anymore. A holistic view of the human body and its organs tells us that things are much more complex, that what we think rationally, feel in terms of emotions, and sense in terms of our gut feeling is really a perfect collaboration of our brain, our heart, and our gut telling us what is really going on. That much, I believe, I understand. What I am only beginning to understand is that apart from these physical aspects, there is another less physical or even not physical at all aspect of this holistic view. I suppose some call it consciousness, others call it energy. I believe the Beach Boys called it good vibrations. I believe that this energy, these frequencies, these vibrations or this consciousness is what connects us with reality, with nature, probably with the entire universe, and of course with each other. But even more important, if we as a collective of individuals with very individual capacities and abilities focus on what we really want, we can actually do anything as long as we're in sync with those good vibrations. Absolutely anything. There are no limits. I have thought about this for a while now. Why are the mainstream media's puppets and the political puppets not capable of framing whole sentences anymore? Why have they all become verbal catatonics who, like a broken record, can only utter two letters? AI, AI, AI. Well, as they say in English, pardon my French, but fuck AI. It is merely a distraction to keep us from realizing our full, unlimited potential as described above. And even though I admit that I do not fully comprehend yet how this unlimited potential works, I know and sense it is there. Well, and after the experience of almost 2 years in prison after a kidnapping, a fake trial in a kangaroo court, I know that we do have this unlimited potential that goes way beyond what I can physically explain, but maybe others can. Why do I know this? Because, as I cannot repeat often enough, it is that other side of your support, that side that goes beyond the physical letters and postcards you write me, the truly astounding positive energy or good vibrations you convey to me, and that I can feel. It is this and the protection that I get from the Waitaha people from New Zealand, the American Indians, and my friend Max's people, the Australian Aboriginals, that has not only kept me afloat, but that seems to be making me even stronger to complete what needs to be done, to make sure that justice is done and that the monsters will not get away with this. Because there can be neither peace nor freedom without justice. I think I've said this many times, and I truly believe this. And to now come full circle, we are here now. We have these powers now, which means that we need not and must not wait until some distant time in the future or even some afterlife or our umpteenth reincarnation to act. We have to act now. I, for my part, have decided to shut the monsters down now, or to quote Ronald Reagan, we're going to make them feel the heat. I think I can quote this man because my friend Kathy O'Brien assured me that, despite some mistakes he may have made, he was one of the good guys. In closing, allow me to tell you 2 jokes. Here's the first one. Mr. Clark, I have reviewed this case very carefully, the divorce court judge said, and I've decided to give your wife $775 a week. Oh, that's very fair, Your Honor, the husband said. And every now and then, I'll try to send her a few bucks myself. The second joke is a short one. Aliens probably fly by Earth and lock their doors. Yeah, probably. At least right now. All the best to all of you, and please be assured that I will be eternally grateful for your standing by me, which reminds me of the movie and its soundtrack of the same name. We're in the process of exiting the tunnel now. We're almost in the light. See you all soon.